throwing meat at people on stage during his Madman tour, to literally biting the head off of a dove in frustration, these are the most insane Ozzy Osbourne facts fans need to know about. Starting with the time he thought meat was a good thing to bring to concerts, back in the early 1980s during his Diary of a Madman tour, Ozzy had a pretty bizarre routine that involved hurling chunks of meat into the audience using a catapult. Yeah, you heard me right, meat. I mean, who does that? But you know what's even crazier? People were actually into it. Fans would show up at his shows with all sorts of animal parts, hoping to get a chance to see them launched into the crowd. And get this, one time, a kid brought an entire ox's head to the concert. Apparently, he'd killed and dismembered the poor animal himself. That's just, I don't even know what to say. Jeez. And this probably wasn't the only time he was connected to crazy people. I mean, don't you remember the time he sang Happy Birthday to Satanists? Now, have you heard the saying that all publicity is good publicity? Well, let me tell you, sometimes that's not entirely true. Case in point, Black Sabbath. In the groovy 70s, their music and look had a lot of people convinced that they were devil worshippers. And you know what? They soon attracted the attention of actual Satanists. Talk about a case of mistaken identity. These Satanists were so obsessed with the band that they went on a wild pilgrimage to Ozzy's hotel room. Can you believe that? They were camping outside and even tried to break in. Ozzy, being the legend that he is, came up with a simple but brilliant strategy for getting rid of them. He blew out all the candles that they had brought with them and started singing Happy Birthday to them. Yes, you heard that right, as if it was their birthday cake. I don't know about you, but I can't even imagine how awkward that must have been for the Satanists. Can you imagine being so obsessed with a band that you would camp outside their hotel room and try to break in? And then, when you finally get close enough to them, they blow out all the candles you brought and sing you happy birthday? Talk about a buzzkill. But if you thought that was crazy, you probably don't know about his wax statue that pees on people. We all know about the time when he urinated on the Alamo Memorial Cenotaph, which got him banned from the city of San Antonio for a whole decade. But what you may not know is that there's actually a wax statue commemorating that infamous moment. Created by artists Ruben Ortiz Torres and Jim Mendiola in 2001, the statue features a motion sensor that causes it to pee when people approach it. That's right, folks. You can now experience the thrill of being peed on by a statue of Ozzy Osbourne without having to visit the real Alamo Cenotaph. Now, I know what you're thinking. Isn't it kind of tasteless to make a statue that celebrates such a disrespectful act? And you're not wrong. But you've got to admit, there's something kind of hilarious about the whole thing. I mean, who would have thought that a moment of drunken foolishness would lead to a wax statue that pees on people? But the worst part is that peeing isn't the only stupid thing he's done while drunk. Like, he literally set fire to a couple of chickens once. It all started when Ozzy's first wife, Thelma, bought him some chickens in an attempt to distract him from his drug and alcohol addictions. Unfortunately, the plan backfired spectacularly. Ozzy ended up hating the chickens and couldn't stand having to feed them. So one fateful night, when he was drunk and feeling particularly cranky, he decided to take out his frustration on the hapless fowl. He grabbed a shotgun and started blasting away at the chicken coop, sending feathers and bits of chicken flying everywhere. But that's not all. Ozzy then decided to take things to the next level by setting fire to the coop and throwing live cartridges into the flames. The resulting explosions and crackling sounds must have been pretty terrifying for both the chickens and anyone within earshot. Now, Ozzy's behavior in this instance was definitely not okay. At the same time, though, you've got to admit that there's something undeniably wild and crazy about the whole story. It just goes to show that when it comes to Ozzy Osbourne, you never quite know what you're going to get. Like, I'm pretty sure no one would have thought that he'd ever be brave enough to give himself a tattoo. But he went ahead and did that. In fact, did you know that the guy has over 15 tattoos? Yep, the Prince of Darkness has adorned his body with all sorts of ink throughout his legendary career. But here's the thing, he actually gave himself his very first tattoo when he was just a young 16-year-old whippersnapper. That's right, the letters OZZY are tattooed across the knuckles on his left hand, and he apparently did it himself with just a sewing needle and pencil lead. Now that takes some great DIY skills, don't you think? I can only imagine the kind of grit and determination it must have taken for Ozzy to tattoo himself with such primitive tools. But then again, this is the man who once bit the head off a bat on stage, so I guess nothing is impossible for him. If you're ever lucky enough to meet Ozzy in person and he flashes those knuckles at you, Just know that you're in the presence of a true badass who isn't afraid to take matters into his own hands, literally, when it comes to self-expression. And while this odd nature isn't necessarily bad, it still caused a lot of chaos for some of his guests. I say this because he was famous for shaving the eyebrows off of people who stayed at his house. Now, according to some reports, he used to sneak into the guest bedrooms of his friends in the middle of the night and shave off their eyebrows. Can you imagine waking up in the morning with no eyebrows, wondering what the heck happened? It must have been quite a shock for Ozzy's friends, but apparently he found it hilarious. But it's not always been all laughs and giggles. He's had his horrible moments too. For example, there was a time he literally stopped breathing for a while. Now, Osbourne has proven time and time again that he's practically indestructible. Case in point, the guy was involved in an ATV accident that left him with multiple broken bones and even caused him to stop breathing. But you know what? He managed to pull through like a champ. According to reports, Ozzy's ATV accident was pretty serious because on top of having 8 broken ribs, he also broke a collarbone and some neck vertebrae. And if that wasn't bad enough, he even stopped breathing at one point. But thankfully, his trusty bodyguard was there to save the day and resuscitate him. But wait, there's more. After being rushed to the hospital, Ozzy was put into a coma for about a week while he recovered from his injuries. And when he finally woke up, he was temporarily suffering from some short-term memory loss. But you know what? Even that couldn't keep him down for long. Despite all the setbacks, he managed to make a full recovery and is still rocking out to this day. I mean, this guy has survived biting the head off of a dove, for crying out loud. Do you really think a little ATV accident was going to take him down? No way! And yeah, I know you probably have your jaw on the floor from when I said he bit the head off of a bird, so let me give you a quick rundown on that. It was something so shocking, so crazy, that it still makes people gasp in disbelief to this day. Are you ready for this? Are you sure? Okay, here it goes. Ozzy bit the head off of a freaking dove. I know, it's insane. Let's set the scene. It's the early 80s. Ozzy is at a meeting with some record executive, and he's feeling a little frustrated. Suddenly, someone hands him a dove, which he takes in his hands and proceeds to pet gently. But then, out of nowhere, he just bites the head off of the poor thing. That's insane. I'm pretty sure everyone in the room must have been in shock. Now, before you go getting all up in arms about animal cruelty, you should know that Ozzy has since expressed regret for what he did. He claims that he thought the dove was fake, and that he was so out of it at the time that he didn't realize what he was doing until it was too late. Still, it's definitely not something you hear about every day, that's for sure. I mean, it's a shocking and disturbing incident that will forever be etched in the annals of rock and roll history. So there you have it, folks. From biting the head off of a dove to throwing meat at people on stage, those were the most insane Ozzy Osbourne facts fans need to know about.